Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Jessica Freedman from MedEdits Medical Admissions. I am the chair and founder of MedEdits Medical Admissions. I am a physician, a former residency and medical school admissions officer at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. And I have been doing Facebook Live Q&As for, about a year now. And I wanted to sort of reinvigorate our YouTube channel. And people had also requested that I start doing lives on YouTube to reach a broader audience. So I first just wanted to make sure, before we kind of advertised this broadly and marketed it broadly, I wanted to make sure that all of our tech was working and that everything was running smoothly. And obviously once I'm just checking on my own computer here. Once we have everything, we're sure that everything is going the way it's supposed to. We're going to, obviously be reaching out to more, more students, more of our audience to let them know about this. So as an introductory, video, which I realize there are not going to be many attendees, and that's totally okay. We will grow this audience. If you do have questions, go ahead and you can please post them in the chat. And I'd be happy to answer. But otherwise, I'm just going to kind of go over some basic questions that I know everybody has, some basic concerns that I know everybody has. Let me first kind of just go over what everyone should be doing right now, depending on where you are in the medical school admissions process. So if you are somebody who is applying this year to medical school, you have obviously already submitted your application. You have, I hope, completed all of your secondary essays, and you are either receiving interviews or you are waiting for interviews. Very, very early in the cycle. We don't expect you necessarily to have interviews yet, while many of our students do have interviews. In fact, we have a number of osteopathic acceptances. We even have an allopathic acceptance, which is a bit bizarre because the AMC rules say that there shouldn't be any allopathic acceptances until October 15th. So I'm not exactly sure how or why that happened. But if you are interviewing, if you have interview invites, congratulations, huge accomplishment. The major interview types that you're going to encounter in the medical school admissions process are going to be traditional one-on-one interviews, which are one-on-one conversations with either a faculty member or with a student. And we have a lot of material about traditional interviews on our website. Or the other very popular type of interview now is the MMI, or the multiple mini interview, which are case-based, station-based interviews where you rotate, obviously virtually, since almost all medical school interviews are now virtual, where you're rotating virtually from case to case. We do find that here in the United States that most MMI interviews are not sort of as pristine in how they're executed and the questions that are asked as they are in Canada. Many of these MMI interviews often do turn into conversations. Your MMI interviewer is supposed to be stone-faced, and we find that that often is not the case. We find that often MMI interviewers do give students feedback. If you don't get feedback, that's all right. But the MMI interview here in the US is a little bit flexible. There are going to be some traditional stations in the MMI interview. And then, of course, there are fewer schools that are doing this, but some schools do have group interviews or a group station where they have you do an activity or something with other applicants. Those sort of become your major interview types. Now, I can assure you there are many more interviews that are still going to be extended between now and the end of this application cycle. If you don't have interviews yet, that's okay. We don't start to worry about having no interviews until January. If we reach January 2024 and you don't yet have any medical school interviews, that's when we want to start looking at your application. We want to start strategizing about, okay, what could have you done differently? Why aren't you getting any interviews? 99.9% of the time we can identify a reason why a student has not received any interview invitations. We expect, the medical school acceptances will start going out as of October 15th. In our experience, fewer schools have been extending their acceptances starting on October 15th. But who knows, since we already know of an allopathic acceptance. So things may be different this year. And this is something that we always do here routinely. We've been following the trends in medical school admissions, for years. This is my entire career. I've been involved in admissions my entire career. So we understand the trends. We understand how they change from year to year. And, so that's something that we're really keen on doing. And so we make sure that we are definitely up to date on what you should expect this application season, how perhaps that differs from the last application season, and we guide our students accordingly. Now, if you are applying in 2024, so that is going to creep up on you very, very quickly. And we want you to start thinking about letters of recommendation. We want you to, if you haven't yet taken your MCAT, really solidify your MCAT studying, your MCAT preparation, your MCAT test dates. Or if you have to retake your MCAT, we want you to come up with whatever your timeline is going to be so you are ready to submit at the end of May. And you want to be thinking about, okay, what else do I need to be doing both this year, meaning academic year? We always sort of go on the July to July schedule. That's kind of what I think of in terms of an academic year. I've always thought this way ever since I was a medical student. My year goes from July 1 to July 1. So, we have all different types of New Year's. My New Year starts on July 1st. So we want you thinking about what are you doing during this year that you're doing to sort of boost your candidacy, build on those experiences that you have, build on those interests that you have to further those. We also want you strategizing about what are you going to be doing in the next academic year. So the year during which you are actually applying to medical school. Because what you do during that year is actually really important. That will give you something to talk about during your interviews. If you end up waitlisted at a school that is higher on your list or that is a top choice, it's going to give you something to send them if you need to try to get off a waitlist. And I can tell you every year we work with students who end up on waitlists and they send in very, very strong letters of intent / update letters and they get off of those waitlists. Last year, in 2023, we saw more waitlist movement than we've ever seen before. So that's something else really important to keep in mind. What you're doing during your application year is vitally, vitally important. If you are applying in 2025 or later, you need to start thinking about your timeline. You need to start thinking about, okay, when am I getting my courses done? In what order am I getting that done? When do I ideally want to be taking my MCAT? When am I going to be getting all of the experiences that I need to get to be a competitive applicant? And we have a lot of articles on our website about what you need to have in your candidacy profile to be a competitive applicant. So you really sort of want to start coming up with that timeline, coming up with an overall plan, start exploring what your interests are, what your niche is going to be. Medical schools definitely want to see that not only do you sort of have this kind of general interest in, let's say, research or clinical work, but that you have a really well-developed niche and understanding of something and that you're really passionate and committed to something. So you want to sort of start exploring those things. If you're a freshman in college, you want to be sure that you are going to visit with your pre-med office. Okay, you want to be on their radar. You want to be going to pre-med clubs. You want to be talking to upperclassmen to find out what other successful pre-meds have done. And you want to be getting used to college life. You want to be getting used to studying, doing well. It's important, if possible, to get off to a strong start when you're starting as a freshman. But I can also tell you that many, many students don't necessarily do so well freshman year because it's also an adjustment year. It's a year when everyone's learning how to balance time, how to sort of, finding friends, how to sort of balance having fun, studying, doing well on your tests. And that's not easy. So give yourself a little bit of room to sort of figure out how you're going to be a successful college student. Something else I want to say is that no matter when you are applying to medical school, it is important to be flexible. It is very possible, for example, you study for your MCAT, you prep for your MCAT, you think you're going to do really well, you have a bad day, you don't do as well as you wanted to do. And then your timeline needs to be revised. You then at that point need a new timeline. So it's important that you be flexible in this process. We are always working with students who have to revise their timelines. Maybe they planned on applying at a certain time, and then depending on something that happens or doesn't happen, or an opportunity that they find, they end up applying at a later date. So it's always important when you're applying to medical school to sort of have a plan A, this is my ideal timeline, plan B, and then plan C. So just make sure that you're being flexible when you are applying to medical school. Okay, someone asks, what would be considered a competitive GPA and SAT score, excuse me, for for BSMD and BSDO? How many hours of research and advocacy is important? Okay, so for BSMD programs, your stats are super important. So we are talking, there's a lot of grade inflation at high schools, but your grades will also be looked at within the context of your high school overall. Not all high schools have grade inflation. So I don't like to give absolute numbers in terms of GPA. Many students applying to BSMD programs have perfect GPAs, but those who apply, from high schools where there isn't grade inflation may not. That's okay. You have to look at this within the context of your individual high school. SATs are routinely high. I would say 1530 or higher as a composite score. Certainly the math score is going to be important as well. I don't like looking at absolute numbers of hours for high school students because high school students are just so busy. I would say that if you've devoted a full summer to research and then you've also continued it over at least one academic school year, that's going to be enough. Again, it's about quality, not quantity. How have you contributed? Is there any demonstration of the impact that you have made through that work? That's what's going to become important. What kind of leadership experience is preferred? It's good to have some leadership in BSMD admissions, but I can also tell you that leadership comes in many forms. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the form of a defined role. Sometimes your letter writers are also going to write about your leadership, your leadership in a classroom, your leadership on a research team. So while it is good to show kind of that progression, you started out as a member of a club or an organization, we're finding more and more students are involved in organizations that are not based on campus, they're based outside of school. So it's nice to kind of have that progression so that, you started out as a member, you moved into, some type of administrative role or some type of role within that organization, and then you became president, so to speak. So showing that upward trend in terms of taking on leadership, that definitely can be valuable. And that's the case, for any admissions process, I'd say. How many students got at least one acceptance to BSMD and BSDO? I don't think that data exists. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry. So anyway, I think this is a great introductory session today. And again, I think this all went smoothly. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close for today. I invite all of you to join my parents' Facebook group. And we will put a link to that when we end this live. And I hope this will be a weekly thing. So please join me next Friday. Again, we will, now that it looks like, we have our tech down and there have been no major issues, we are going to be doing this every week. This was kind of a tester session session here, and we will be sending out reminder emails, and I'll be posting in the Facebook group as well. So I hope I will also see you on Thursday nights in our Facebook Live Q&A. Those are some really great active sessions, and I also hope that these YouTube sessions will become equally productive. So have a terrific weekend. Have a wonderful Friday. I hope to see everybody soon. Bye-bye.